Hello, everybody. I want you to imagine something here for just a moment. Imagine you're in 1978 and you're recording your first album, and you have people like Don Henley, Timothy B. Smith, J.D. Souther, all three of those guys from the Eagles at the time, had Larry Carlton from Steely Dan. You had a new up and coming guitarist by the name of Steve Lukather, who's from with Toto from the beginning and a good friend of Boomerosity here. And all these people are on your album. And you put out this album with a lot of excitement and a lot of people buzzing about it in the industry. And it's released at the same time as other genres were coming out, like disco and things like that. And that album just it was appreciated, it was played, but it didn't make the huge impact that everybody just knew it would. Not just you, if you were the artist, but everybody else, even well seasoned music industry people that supposedly know what they're doing. They all felt that way. And let's just say that, let's see, it'd be 1978. So let's say last year, you decide to put out your second album and it's getting the same kind of buzz, but it doesn't have the same names in there, of course. Well, if that were you, you would be Dane Donaldson. Dane Donaldson is one of the early pioneers of what has become known as yacht rock, and very easy listening. I love it. I play it a lot, and especially in my car or when in my alone times and such, which is often. But I got to speak with Dane because I heard about the new album being released late last year, and I tracked him down and we wanted to talk with each other. So we did. And that's what you're about to watch here. We had a great conversation, lots of information, a lot of insight into the genre and what was going on in 1978 and what the response has been so far in just the few months that the album has been out. So I hope you listen to the whole thing because it is well worth your time listening to it. And as always, I'd like for you to like it, hit the like button. If you're not a subscriber already, please subscribe. It's not going to cost you anything. And please do share it with your yacht rock loving friends because they're going to love this interview. And you're also going to love the album. The first album was just called Dane Donaldson. It was his debut album. His second album is called LA Rainbow. And while we talk about LA, please keep the people of LA and Southern California in your thoughts and prayers because as I record this, it seems like the whole Southern Cal area is just burning up. And I have friends out there and acquaintances. We all have artists out there that we're fans of that they're impacted by this. So anyway, to have a little light spot in all this, I hope you can listen to this interview and enjoy it. So without any further ado, here is my first interview with Dane Donaldson. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerosity. Take care.
Okay, I can see you
There
now.
you are. All right. Wow.
Hey,
Boy, that's I need you to turn yours to your right, I think, just a tad, so you'd be a little more. There you go. Right in there is perfect. All right. Well,
okay,
hey there,
nice.
Dane.
What a background. Wow.
Hey, well, I think it might be two of your most favorite albums. So
Hey, before you get started, is this going to be a video or an audio podcast?
it's going to be both, actually.
Okay,
I put the video on the YouTube and I put the audio out on all the major podcast platforms.
gotcha, man. You got a nice website. That thing is incredible.
You looking
Uh,
at the website or the YouTube channel?
your website, when I looked at
Oh,
that, I thought,
okay.
wow, really nice. Really, really nice.
Well, I'm wrapping up my 16th year doing this, so it's
Wow.
I think my camera is just a tad askew there. There we go.
Hmm.
Yeah, 16th year. Just this month marks the third year of the YouTube channel and podcast, and
Wow.
essentially, just to give you a brief rundown on the history of Boomerosity, I was part of a committee for my high school reunion, and I was the messenger essentially. And I did all the emails and all the hyping of the reunion, and used a lot of nostalgia. I graduated in 1977 in Phoenix, and so everybody came up to me at the reunion and said, "Man, you're good at writing. You ought to do something with that." And so, long story short, I launched the website, and I figured it might last a year. Here I am,
Wow.
16 years later, and still doing over 500 interviews. I never
Wow.
imagined.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Never
Just
imagined
amazing.
it would last this long, or I'd get to talk to great people like you for as long as I've been able to. So it's been fun. I enjoy it. So
Yeah. Are you in Nashville?
no, I'm actually in Sevierville, up in the Smoky Mountains.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. I saw the Pigeon Forge. Yeah, I
Yeah,
saw that
yeah, yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
Hold on one second. I need to turn off the email
Yeah,
so
I'm
I
I'm
don't get
not
a bunch
hearing
of.
myself. I'm not hearing my. Maybe if I took out one of the headphones, I could hear. Yeah, I can hear myself better this way. I'm not hearing myself at all in the headphones. That is strange. Can you hear
Oh,
me okay?
yeah, I hear you perfectly fine. So
Just
I,
wondering if I haven't
you
hit the
may have
right
to go
button.
into your settings and select the audio and then tell it where you want to hear it from. I throw myself off that way a lot when I've played around on my computer on
Um,
other
go.
apps.
Oh, that actually that's okay. Let's just go with it here. You know.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, I was dying to talk to you because I was just intrigued by this. You know, you were such an early entrant into what they've started calling yacht rock, and
Yeah.
that incredible first album. You've had a lot of people on there, very very impressive, and you know, I've even interviewed one or two of the people that worked on the album with you. So Steve Lukather are
Wow.
being the bigger. In fact, I've interviewed Luke more than I have anyone else so far, and
Wow. Wow.
great guy. But so tell you know, between that album, now you got this new one, and what was the big rush from going from the first one to the second one?
Oh, it's interesting. I guess so many things, came into play on that. And the one being, when you make an album like that and being the only unknown person on my first album, it's you're sitting the bar to where, and then of course in the multi-million-dollar studios and the budget and all that stuff, I'm thinking, how could I ever, do something like that? I didn't think it would be at all possible. And then, along came the streaming, and I got put on a couple artist playlists, like with Spotify and what have you. And so I started doing a few of these podcasts and interviews, and I ended up meeting a guy named John Nixon, who was a graduate actually of Berkeley School of Music. And he has a
Oh,
group called Page 99 that does, tries to, not tries, does imitate all the music that came from that era. It's incredible. I mean, he's got a cast of people there. And when I found out slowly all this new technology, I thought, well, let's just give it a shot here. And we tried doing a few tunes, and next thing you know, we had a few labels interested in signing it, so we just did it.
very cool. Very, very cool. So what did you do between the first album and now? Where did you stay in the music business, or what did you do?
Well, I played. It's interesting. From my area, they had a few groups that had hit records. There was one bubblegum group, the Ohio Express, had "Yummy, Yummy, Yummy" and all that. And
Oh yeah,
then
I
some of my
remember.
friends had a hit back in '67 with the Music Explosion with a song called "A Little Bit of Soul." And
Mhm.
so I ended up touring with the Music Explosion quite a bit. And then I played in a few local bands, but I didn't really want to do any recording or anything like that until actually I met a person through a Japanese webmaster, a Frenchman named Frederick Slama, that was putting some albums out. And he asked me to sing on a song. And as it was, I was going to be in Los Angeles. And I agreed to do that. And he was working with a guy, a producer and musician named David Diggs. Well, something went south and I couldn't make the date. So I called up David and said, "Man, I'm not going to be there. I'm sorry. I was looking forward to it." And he says, "Well, do you have access to studios there?" And I said, "Well, absolutely. But what's your point?" And I didn't know and found out a short time later that you could email a background vocal. I mean, that's how much it's all changed. You
Yeah.
used to have to be standing right in the studio doing it. Now I can sing background vocals or sing lead vocals and email them halfway around the world, which we did with this last
Yep.
album, So it's just amazing the technology, just amazing.
It has. It's yeah, I mean, I'm 65. I always have to stop and pinch myself to realize I'm 65 now. But just, I think for a lot of us that were in that era, we're slow to realize what's possible. Then when we get it, we run with it. This kind of exchange right now is a case in point. It wasn't until COVID hit and we had the lockdown and I was
Yeah.
invited to be on a group interview with Randy Travis, of all people, he and
Wow.
his wife. And I wasn't, you know, I thought you had to have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and special internet hookup and all this stuff. And I knew the guy who put it together, and I thought, well, I think I'm as smart as he is. I started investigating. And I thought, heck, I'm going to run with this. And here we are, a couple hundred interviews, well, probably more than that later,
Wow.
since 2020. And now you probably have the software now to record in your spare room somewhere, just keep doing what you love to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've got a little studio here, and I actually had one of my best friends that died back in 2006 left behind a 10-year-old son who's now grown up, and he actually flew over here one day and walked in and recorded me with just the acoustic guitar, and I didn't use a click track or anything. Uh, and that ended up being one of the songs on my new album called "Fair Enough." So it's just amazing. Yeah, my biggest challenge of all of this with this group, Page 99, these guys, I mean, these background singers and arrangers like Russ Fitzpatrick, the guitar players, they're just so phenomenal. And my biggest challenge was now, when I recorded my first album, I was in my 20s. And how am I going to do hitting the notes now? Because as I've stated before, I don't like auto tune or I don't like any of the the things that go along with all that to change your voice because the listening public can see through that or hear through that rather.
Mhm.
And so that was my biggest challenge, and I was afraid, well, now I've got all the musicians where I can get the same quality as my first album. Am I going to be able to hold up my end of the bargain here? So that was pretty tough at first, and so but luckily I think we came out okay.
I think you did a great job. I love the quality of the songs you put on this. And
Thank you.
well, I want to get into that in a moment, but I mean, just some of the comparisons I could make to, other very big name groups and vocalists and such. I was very impressed by, what you cranked out there. So
Thank you.
so from concept to finish, how long did it take you to record this album?
I think we worked on it for inside a couple years. Wasn't in any big rush to do it. I didn't have a label deal. Ended up going with P-Vine Records in Japan,
Mhm.
uh, which does Page 99 and several other people like that. Uh, but we weren't in any really big hurry. But it didn't take much time at all. Did a few songs that I had around for a couple years, but most of them were this new material in the
Wow.
last few years.
Did you, so it was just a woman. So you didn't have the luxury of going out and reaching out to some of the people that worked on your first album saying, "Hey, do you got some spare time?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Track down Luke when he's not with Ringo or, Stevie Nicks or somebody. I mean, you had quite the entourage on that album there. I was stunned by it all.
Oh, I was too at the time. I imagine me coming off of the farm, and being a farm in Ohio and walking in a room with Don Henley and Stevie Nicks and all of those people, and some of the greatest jazz players, Larry Carlton, even the
Oh,
horn
wow.
section that was took part of that record were like legendary. I think there were like something like 19 Grammy winners in all that played on that album. They either had a Grammy at the time. I think Henley and Stevie Nicks and some of those people had Grammys at that time, but others went on later to win Grammys within the next few years. You know,
Hmm.
so it was a little intimidating to say the
I
least.
bet. Yeah. Well, but it came out so good, and to be able to have that traction still as far as the quality of sound, and I would imagine there's been this resurgence of interest in the first album, to with Yacht Rock even having its own channel on Sirius XM.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
It's
interesting, like you'd mentioned, reaching out to other people. I've only spoken to, I think I might have spoken to Lucas or maybe one or two times since I did the album. Jay Winding, of course, who I always considered the heartbeat of my first album. He was working with me from the very beginning when we were sitting in the hotel at the Chateau Marmont Hotel doing the arrangements of these songs. And but people, they have different lives, and it just been next to impossible. The only person that I reached out to was I was watching, and I'm sure you're familiar with the whole story of the Steely Dan lost song that got erased on Gaucho, that song called "The Second Arrangement." So, like a group of people from musicians from Nashville and LA got together with Bill Schnee, who had won some Grammys with Steely Dan, Michael Marty, and of course,
Mhm.
and they recorded that song. And there was a guitar player and singer from Norway, Uli Borid, on there. And I was just blown away when I saw this guy. And I thought, oh, I wish this would have been like the old days, where we had I was with the Boylan brothers that had the golden address book. They could pick up the phone and call these people. And my co-producer, John Nixon, said, well, I had him on my show. I can reach out to him. And as luck would have it, Uli had heard or was familiar with my music, and he said he would
Wow.
love to contribute. So we sent him two songs and said, I was so blown away that he was going to do this. I said, if you could pick whatever song you want, play a lead guitar solo on it. And as it turned out, he did both songs and did multiple parts on the songs: piano, wire choir, lead solos,
Wow.
and he's just phenomenal musician and singer. And was very very fortunate to have him on this new record.
So aside from the technology of, drop filing, drop boxing files back and forth to record and that kind of thing, what was the biggest change you noticed aside from technology in putting this album together compared to the first one and any other albums you may have worked on?
Yeah, I think it was. We were speaking about a little bit earlier. My biggest challenge and total focus was, I've got all these guys like Russ Fitzpatrick, who to me sounds like a cross between Richard Carpenter and Michael McDonald. He can do five-part harmonies with nuances and stuff, and just a golden voice, great arrangements. How am I going to, all these years later, you know, in my 70s here, do those vocal parts? And so
Mhm.
that was where my main focus was the whole time. And so I really didn't. I let all the other stuff, the co-producer John Nixon, worry about that stuff. I just tried to focus on the vocals
Gotcha.
for the most part.
What
Yeah.
uh, what from were there any surprises in putting this album together that you didn't anticipate when you initially made up your mind you were going to do it? What what surprised you most about putting the album together?
I think what surprised me most was kind of an, if this makes sense, kind of an ongoing thing as we were doing the tracks and going, wow, I mean, I couldn't believe that came out like that. I mean, I was used to, as we mentioned a little earlier, being at Westlake Audio and Capitol Recording Studios and the Record Plant and all these multi-million dollar studios and multi-million dollar talent. And I'm thinking when I'm hearing something that I think, you know, we hit the bar on this new
Mhm.
thing, it was like a constant surprise to me. So that was really the. I'm going. We actually pulled this off. You know.
I, I know what you mean. I can relate to that with my work.
Mhm.
I'm thinking, gosh, I get to talk to they talk to me, so I guess it's easier for them to do that than file for a restraining order or something. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. There you go.
So on the album, I always ask artists this, and I always say, I know I don't ask you to pick your favorite song because it's like picking your favorite child, and we're not supposed to do that. But what song on the album would you point to as a calling card saying, hey, if you like this, you're probably going to like the rest of the record?
Well, it kind of changes as our tastes do. Like if you were listening to the Beatles at one point, you just love Rubber Soul, and then the next thing you know, you're listening to Sergeant Pepper, and wow, I just can't believe this. So it's kind of the same thing, but I'd say currently, I'm kind of leaning toward my favorites is like Chinatown and
Mhm.
possibly Lonely Day in Paradise.
Ah, okay.
You know,
Okay.
I love that because of the kind of has that little what they call the Purdy shuffle type thing, the halftime
Yeah.
shuffle,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Uli Board played just a beautiful guitar solo in that. I was really happy with that. And of course, Chinatown, Russ Fitzpatrick, some of the vocal arrangements that he did on that sounded to me like music recorded in the 30s and 40s with the
Yeah. Yeah.
harmonies. So I was
Yeah, I
very,
agree.
very happy about that. But that's
The two
currently
I go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, that was it. That's currently my, I guess, my favorite. If we talk next week, it'll probably change. So,
I'm the same way. I'm the same. Well, for me, in listening to the album like I did, there were two songs that just really reached out to me and grabbed me. One was "Let It Go," and then the other one that really got me was "Sunrise on the Water," and it just had such a Toto, Steely Dan, Pablo Cruz type of vibe to it. And I was wondering if maybe you could tell me your thoughts on both of those songs, maybe if there's any stories behind them, things like that.
well, basically, uh, "Sunrise on the Water" is a Page 99 song, and that
Mm.
came. I've never done cover songs in my life, but this song really kind of spoke to me. Um, I just love the message, and it just proves that whatever John Nixon and Page 99 set out to do, they accomplished. you know uh, Let It Go, that was one that actually used a lot of musicians from my area. The piano player on that was a guy I'd met that was the maestro and choir director of the Greater St. John Church, and this guy
Oh,
was just an amazing jazz player. But yeah, I mean, it's funny you mentioned those songs and you compare them to the other songs. That was one of the problems that I had thinking. I said, well, these songs are so different. I mean, one song's a jazz song, the next song, like the one I did with the pedal steel player, that's kind of a progressive country song. I mean, there's such an eclectic mix of genres here. Um, I said, I don't know if this is how's this going to work? And my co producer, John, said, same as your first album. It was the same thing. And
mhm.
so we have a lot of different directions and styles, but at least we kept that part consistent.
Well, what kind of feedback are you getting from people who's heard the album so far?
Well, we're getting great feedback. The label, told me that they were doing a lot better in France and Germany than they anticipated. But I go by in the old days, you would read the press. Everybody says don't pay any attention to what you get in the press, so on and so forth. But I've been so fortunate with some absolute great interviews coming out of Germany. And I was actually interviewed by Rolling Stone in France, and
Wow.
didn't know what to expect there either. And they came out with just an amazing interview. I think what amazes them more than anything is is someone decided 46 years, like you were alluding to earlier in the interview, 46 years later, doing a second album, and I think they're all just blown away by that.
Hmm.
How you could wait that long and then do another album, so
Well,
didn't have an
well,
answer for them.
what? Who has the
But
masters
yeah,
for the
they've been.
first record?
I'm sorry.
I said, who has the masters for the first record?
Well, the first record, the masters are they belong to Sony Music Corporation,
Okay.
and they're the ones that they put this thing out. I can't even tell you how many compilation albums this has been on, games, video games. Luckily for me, I think this one, the Masters survived that fire that they had several
Oh, I
years
was going to
ago,
ask you. Yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, there were just many, many great works that were destroyed in that fire in California. You know, ironically,
Yeah.
is going through the same thing today. But
Terrible.
it's just terrible. But mine, I think, mine are masters are somewhere in a mountain, somewhere in Pennsylvania. I'm guessing.
I hope
So
so. Far from
yeah,
fire,
I'm pretty sure
hopefully.
that's where they're at. Yeah, but they
Well,
are owned
cool.
by Sony. Sony does own those masters.
I see. I see. Well, what's on your radar for this year? Are you gonna do any traveling and support? Any, I don't know if touring's possible. Maybe it is, but what's on your agenda and itinerary for 2025? Are you gonna, you know, to
Yeah,
drive this
it's a
album?
little early, Randy, to tell. I've had some inquiries of some people that were talking about uh, places to play in Germany. They've
Mhm.
sent emails to the website offering their help if you tour Germany. Same thing in Japan. So I think it's a little early to tell yet. We just have to see what the year brings here. But right now, I've got the bug to record. I'm excited about continuing to write and record some of these things.
Oh, good.
So
I hope you do that. And
been
it,
back in the studio, as a matter of fact, already.
all right. All right. Well, if you come out with an album or an EP or what, go on tour or something, let me know. We'll set up another one of these and maybe it would actually work the first try and
That'd be
and
great.
get and keep things going because my door's going to always be open to you, Dane. And
Oh,
I
thank
just
you,
think
Randy.
this
I
is
appreciate it. Thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
well, my pleasure, and I love your work, and I'm glad we got to hook up like this. And again, if there's ever anything I can do to help, you've got my email address. Just reach out, and I'll do what I can to help you because I love your work.
Well, thank you so much. And as you're interviewing these people, like Luke and some of those
Yeah,
people, tell them I said hello, and
I'll do
I
that. In
follow
fact,
their I follow their
I'm
careers.
supposed to talk to. I think I'm supposed to talk to Luke sometime soon. They're Toto and Christopher Cross, I think it is, are going on
Yeah.
tour together, and I'm in pretty good with Toto's publicist, and he said he's going to try to work out another interview. It'd be I think number 8 with Luke this time,
Oh, that'd
but
be great. Well, please tell him I said hello, and good
I
luck with the
will.
new tour. He had, I remember we did a song on my first album called Whatever Happened. And we had Jay Graydon scheduled, but had some kind of a conflict, and he wanted to reschedule the session. And Jay Winning at the time said, "Well, I'm working with this guy that's in a new band. They're out of L.A., Steve Lukather." And and to me, I'm thinking, you always think of this guitar shredder thing coming in, and it wasn't that kind of song. It was like an acoustic guitar solo. And I thought,
Mhm.
well, this isn't going to work. This is what I'm thinking of myself. I didn't really say anything to anybody. But he came in there and did one of the most beautiful solos. In fact, it's received, on the internet accolades from different people and groups that say one of the 10 best solos they've ever heard on acoustic guitar. but Luke came in and did just an absolute beautiful solo on that song, Whatever Happened. And I
Wow.
ended up playing it for Jay Graydon later and some other people, and they were just blown away by it. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
please tell him I said hello and good luck.
Well, if you're on Facebook, shoot me a friend invite, or I can find you if you're on there. And I have a photo album on my profile. I think it's called Randy with dot dot dot, and there's several pictures of Luke and I together over the years.
Oh wow,
I
wow.
think I first met up with him in Chattanooga, Tennessee, after I'd interviewed him a couple times, and then uh, I met him actually first time was backstage at a Ringo concert because he plays guitar for Ringo, and
Oh
then
yeah.
after that was in Chattanooga, and then uh, a couple other cities. Last time I saw him face to face was in Nashville when I was doing some work there. And it was at the Ryman. I went over to the Ryman to
Oh
meet up with him, and that was just
wow.
before the shutdown. So it's been a few years since I've seen him in person. But great guy, heart of gold. You never know what's going to plop out of his mouth, that's for sure. But just a lot of fun to talk to and a heart of gold. I think he gets a bum rap sometimes from people, but and taken advantage of too. But he's a
Yeah.
super, super guy. Just love
Well,
talking
I'll
with him.
always be grateful for the contribution that he made, on my
Mhm.
first album. I'm always be grateful for that, you know.
Well, I'll relay the message and I'll do it by email for sure, route it through his publicist, and then I'll mention it again when he and I talk if that gets to materialize. But I'll send you the link to this when I get it all posted, probably a week or two before I can get it out there. But
Yeah.
I love all this, and like I said, if I could ever be of any help, let me know. My door is always going to be open to you, Dane.
Thank you so much, Randy, for the opportunity. I appreciate it, and congratulations on your show. Keep the yacht rocking, as I say.
All right. Thank you. And do bother knocking, right? So all
All
right,
right,
my friend,
man.
take care. We'll be in
Thank you,
touch.
sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Uh-huh.
now.
Bye-bye.